In this experiment, we're going to test for the hydrolysis of some sugars. If you note in the lab manual, there's a diagram trying to show you what we are attempting to do. We're going to start at the top with large test tubes of sucrose and starch, both with hydrochloric acid. In the first row of tubes beneath that is our initial time 0. So this will be the immediate mixture and effect of hydrochloric acid on those sugars. The subsequent lower tubes are drawn after different time intervals that have been mixed with hydrochloric acid. We're attempting to see if we can hydrolyze things like sucrose and starch into simpler sugars, and at what point is that done. If you recall, to test for simple sugars and for starch, we use the Benedict's and the iodine reagents. So here's how we're going to start. I've already labeled up all of our test tubes. The back row are a series of 8 smaller test tubes that will represent different time intervals. The front two, these larger ones, are going to be the initial stock samples. So you can see I've written sucrose and starch, so I know which tube is which, and to that I'm going to add 10 mils of their solutions. Always recall not to cross-contaminate your pipettes, so use separate pipettes. Do you recall which kind of pipette I'm using if I'm measuring all the way to the tip? This is a blowout, and that's just what I did. I blew it out at the end. I'm going to take the same 10 mils of starch and put it into its container. Just like in graduated cylinders, we do get a meniscus in these smaller pipettes. Notice the starch has got kind of a cloudy appearance, and the sucrose is kind of a very pale amber color. To that, we're going to add 5 mils of hydrochloric acid. This is where we have to be careful. This is a fairly concentrated acid. Each of these test tubes will need to be gently swirled to combine the acid with the sugars. Gotta remove the acid to a safer spot. We'll gently swirl these. And the instructions say to take an initial sample from each of these as our time 0. So for the sucrose solution, we are going to take 1 mil and place it into tube number 1. For the starch solution, we're going to place that in tubes 3 and 4. Now we wait for 2 minutes.